Hi everybody, Will Alexander from Will Alexander's Dog Show Tips, brought to you by Canine Chronicle TV. This week on the interview chair we have two-time Westminster Best in Show winner, multiple Quaker Oats Award winner, handler extraordinaire, Mr. Scott Sommer. Hey everybody, Will Alexander here. Today we have Mr. Scott Sommer. Hey Scott, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, What's the weather like there right now?
Absolutely beautiful. Blue skies, 68 degrees,
Yeah.
no humidity. Perfect.
Well, our humidity is snow. We have snow and a balmy minus 7 degrees.
Yeah, I used to like seeing that, but I always knew when I was in New York, I was coming home and back to green.
Exactly. All right, well, let's get started. How old were you, Scott, and when you first got involved in dogs, and how did you get first involved in dogs?
Um, First of all, I'm the youngest of six. I have three sisters and two brothers. Um, my parents bred smooth fox terriers.
Okay,
Um, my mother was showing dogs prior to me even being born.
so you were
Um,
born into dogs.
yes, I showed my first dog when I was 5 years old. Um, and I was hooked from that point on. So I went to the dog shows, as often as I could because I had to go to school. Um, I would go with my mother as every weekend. Um, when I was not even old enough to show in junior showmanship, would help different handlers at the dog show. So I worked for the Forsyths, actually Mark and Bonnie.
Okay,
Um, and
so
that's
you were
sort of
Mark
how
Bonnie's assistant
I,
while they were
pretty
working for the
much,
Forsyths. Okay.
pretty much. And I also helped Ted Young, which then, of course, I was working for David Roberts. Um, and I would do that as often as possible.
And how old were you then when you were working for these people?
I used to hold dogs maybe when I was like 8,
Wow.
and I would like take dogs and bring them back to the Bluebird, or just walk them back and forth, just do whatever I was capable or they would allow me to do.
That's incredible. My first time in the ring, I was 7, and I gave the judge the dog, and I took off. I couldn't imagine trying to help somebody. So,
My very first time showing um, was at a Fox Terrier specialty. The judge was Ed Bracey, and I beat Peter Green, and I thought I was on cloud nine.
I bet.
So, and the dog's name was Peanuts. I can't remember what her registered name was, but I went best of opposite, and I was thrilled.
I bet. Yeah, I would be too. So, where did you live at this point?
Long Island, New York.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were raised there. Now I do. How about that?
Yep. I
Okay.
left New York when I was 16,
Okay. So
moved to Houston.
you moved to Houston then? Is that when you started to work for Michael?
Yes.
We're missing a gap now, though. So you were helping at 8 years old. What happened between 8 years old to 16 when you started for Michael?
I would help the Forsyths whenever they needed me. Um, I would and help Ted, David Roberts and Ted Young. So between the two, most dog show weekends that I was able to attend, that's what I did. And I showed in juniors, but I would working for them was more of a priority showing in juniors.
That's good. So what made you decide to go work for Michael then at that 16?
Well,
Michael Campbell, I'm sure we all know. So
no, this is kind of interesting how that all happened.
okay.
We were at Montgomery County, and I was the only person there helping Janie, and we just had all the smooth fox terriers. So we were under that tent, and we were set up right next to Michael Campbell. And Michael showed a Kerry Blue Terrier named Donnery's Roadrunner. And I used to see pictures of him in the magazines, and I used to think, oh, wow, that dog's really cool. And so over the course of the day, got to speaking to Michael and talking and whatever. And then Forsyths were getting ready to retire. I wanted to go work for somebody. Nobody on the East Coast was really looking for anybody. And I asked Michael, and he said, oh yeah, here's my number, whatever. So we go home from Montgomery County, and I called him maybe 10 times. Kept saying, I want to come, I want to go there. That's how it started. I got on an airplane. Me and my Cocker Spaniel that David Roberts bred, and we flew to Houston, and it was the first time I ever been away from my house, anything, and the rest of it was history.
Well, what did you think when you stepped off that plane in Houston? Had you been in Houston before or no?
Never.
No.
I mean, I've been all around the East Coast. I mean, we'd go to Canada on a family vacation, Niagara Falls, go to Florida. That's probably about as far away as I'd ever been. So at first it was a bit of a shell shock. You know, I didn't know anybody, I knew nothing, but it worked out well.
Yeah, of course, for sure. Well, keep going. Well, you were working for Michael, and how to go from there? What happened?
Well, there were
You worked
ups
for quite
and
a
downs.
while. You worked for there. How long were you there for?
A little over 15 years.
Wow, that's unheard of nowadays.
Oh yeah, I think Michael Dackel beat me by about 3 months when he
Wow.
worked for Bill Trainer.
Yeah, and Kenny Murray was like, 10 years for Dick, I think, something like that. So, wow.
Well, I think it's the best thing I ever did.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I mean, the learning experience you get from working for somebody for so long is tremendous. And I think that there were a lot of people, other dog handlers, that take you a lot more serious because you really put the effort in. You know, one that comes to mind is George Ward. I mean, he couldn't have been more supportive of everything I did.
Yeah, and that was a tough one. So.
Yeah, oh yeah. If he liked you, you're doing something right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he just liked me because I was Canadian. My house is just down the road from where he grew up in Canada. So.
Yeah, working for Michael was very interesting because I did a lot of stuff. I remember early on when I was working for him, Michael had a flu, not COVID, just a flu.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I would help him out, and you know, I would do some stuff on my own. Well, I think the worst thing I ever did was I clippered the wrong end of the Bedlington's tail. So that was pretty funny. He laughed, so it was funny, but you know, the hair grew back pretty quick. But that was that's something that I'd never forget.
Yeah.
After I did it, I was like, something's not right here. So that was a funny day.
I bet. So you worked for him for 14 plus years. What made you you went on your own? How old were you when you went on your own?
Moved there when I was 16, so probably 30.
Yeah, wow.
32,
Yeah. So
maybe.
did you go on your own when Michael moved north? So I can't remember.
I stayed at the kennel that Patty and Michael built, and when they divorced, you know, that I stayed there for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just wanted to do it like completely on my own, and I tried that and moved to a house in Pearland, Texas, that had like a small little kennel. But I wasn't expecting to be I wasn't expecting to have so many dogs come.
To be as
And
busy as you were, yeah.
yes, I was expecting maybe, you know, if I was lucky, maybe I have 8 or 10.
Yeah.
But once it went up to the 20s, I was like, we can't do this. And it was the setup that Adam Wilkerson worked for me at the time. And it was a setup that once we put the dogs to bed, we couldn't even drive out of the driveway. You go out to dinner or go to the movies, because once you pull back in, they all want to go out.
Yeah.
It was like you either go to bed or you whatever. And I said, you know what, this isn't working. So I went back to the kennel. And from there, everything worked out great. And, you know, Patty didn't really want to deal with the kennel. So we bought the kennel from them, and the rest was history. Made life a whole lot easier.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I've been there when you're trying to work, and you can't do anything because you wake them up every time you do something. I know that. Yeah.
Yes.
So you were on your own. Who was your first exciting dog when you were on your own?
That's another interesting story. So
That's what we're here for.
all right. So Dick Beauchamp introduced me to a lady named Seal Ruggles. She had a Bichon. Somebody else showed him, but he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't winning at all. So he suggested that she send him to me. Well, here I am, brand new on my own, have this fantastic person to show a dog for, and I can't win with it either because the dog doesn't want to be there. So it took me a couple of months of working my ass off, trimming it as best I could, and trying and trying and trying. And when the dog doesn't want to do it, I don't care how good it is, it's not going to happen. So I finally got the nerve up, and I called her on the phone, and I said, you know, you don't like this. So I said, I've tried everything I know. And then I said, she said, thank you for being so honest with me, and blah, 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 blah. We didn't have another Bichon to replace him with, nor had I seen one to replace him with. And I said to her, oh, by the way, would you be interested in any other breeds? And she said, yeah. She said, I would do that. So we ended up with a Lakeland. Her name was Brandy. And that was sort of how Seal and I got involved. And that was the first dog that I showed that, you know, really was like a priority.
Yeah, it did some good winning. I'm going to backtrack a bit. If you don't mind, I want to go back to your Michaelis. What was it like? Because you were involved with a very influential dog, Lacey. Tell me about that. I don't want to miss that. So
I don't know where to start. That's kind of another funny thing.
tell everybody who she is first. I'm sure most people know who we're talking about, but just in case there's someone out there that doesn't know.
Her name was Registry's Lonesome Dove. She's the top winning terrier of all time.
Wire Fox Terrier. You know, she was top winning terrier all time, but she was a
top winning terrier of all time. A Wire Fox Terrier. So here's Lacey's story. So, you know, we were very busy. Michael had a lot of clients' dogs, and, you know, we showed all different breeds of dogs. We had Patty and Michael bred Wire Fox Terriers, and we had a litter of 3 Wire Fox Terrier bitch puppies. So when they were about, I don't know, 9-10 weeks old, Michael or Patty, one or the other, called me on the phone and said, hey, can you pick one of those wire puppies and send it to Tom Gately? So they never came and looked at them. So, I just picked the one that I wanted to send to him. and we ended up keeping the other two, and they stayed living at the kennel. So we had Lacey and Laurel.
Who did Tom get?
He had a white one. I can't remember what her name was. She was all white with a tan head. Her name was Laurel, and then we kept Lacey and Lindsay. So I don't know, they were maybe about a year and a half old, and I got so sick of pulling them down and getting them ready to go to a dog show that I finally, as an assistant, getting paid maybe I think at that time maybe I was making $150 a week, maybe $175 if I got a raise. So I finally got Lacey all ready to go to a dog show. It was right here in Houston, so it was close to the house. I entered her by myself with my own money, even though I didn't have any. And she went to the dog show, and she won. And Rick went crazy over her. And then we came home from that dog show, and Michael and Patty took her really serious. And they moved her. They actually took her to their house. Actually, I'll go back a step. We started showing her a little bit because she knew nothing. I mean, nothing other than how to walk on a leash. She didn't know a thing. Then we went to, I think it was Baytown, Texas, and I showed her, and she went best in show under Jim Clark. That was the end of it for me. Scotty boy, the assistant, no more Lacey. And she moved into Patty and Michael's house, and because she had a lot to learn. And Patty's really responsible for the one teaching her to show and act the way she did. And, just from being in the house with her all day and, teaching her how to bait and that kind of stuff, which she knew nothing. I mean, you could put a piece of food in her face and she would just look at the floor. So I think Patty did a really good job. So that's pretty much Lacey's story.
When did Mr. Lawrence get involved?
She started out with a lady named Marlene Greif, who is still a very good friend of mine. Started out as her owner, and then once she got started being shown, realized that it was going to cost a lot more because she started winning so much. And I want to say right after that is when Mr. Lawrence got involved. And that's another story with Mr. Lawrence, because I'm assuming most dog people know that Lacey had lymphoma, and then she went from being this beautiful, coated everything wire fox terrier to going through the treatments, which were, I don't know if I would do that if it was my dog, but we went through it and she got through it. She looked like a smooth fox terrier at one point, and then when we grew her hair back, and she only needed, I think, 3 best in shows to be the top winning terrier. So Mr. Lawrence wanted to do that. So Michael's now not living in Houston, so I got stuck with that wonderful job that I really didn't want anything. I wanted to be not part of that at all. But anyway, ended up, that's what we had to do. So we got her back in shape, and oh God, that was some hard days.
I bet.
I wish when she won that 3rd one and it was over, I could have just loaded up every dog we had there to show and just went home. I was so relieved.
Yeah.
But he wanted to tell me which dog shows to go to. And I said, no, I'm going to pick the ones I'm going to go to. Oh, the first time I ever showed her after we came back, I got beaten the breed.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that was in Corpus Christi, Texas. Yep. under Keith Level.
Oh, wow.
Yep. That was my return with a dog with 200 and something best in shows. Yeah, that was my debut.
And the garden, right?
So anyway, that pressure was over, so we were good to go. And then Lacey lived a couple of, I'd say 2-3 years after that. She lived with Patty, and then that lymphoma came back, and then that was it.
Yeah.
She was very happy and lived a great pampered life there with Patty.
Sure. Well, that's a story I didn't know. I'm glad I asked you about that then. So let's go forward again. You're showing you're showing the Lakeland bitch now.
Well,
Okay, go ahead. I won't interrupt.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
What was the Lakeland bitch showed for how many years? A couple of years?
Yeah, I would say maybe 2 at the most.
Yeah.
Her name was Chardar's Brandy Alexander.
I remember her, yeah.
So she was the first actual one. And then we kept, Seal's real breed were Bichons. And, if we had a Bichon that was worthy or was good, then that's what she wanted to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
But we went through a period of time where we had like all different breeds. I mean, we had a standard Schnauzer that Clay Cody used to show, and then he had retired. His name was Wager. His actual owner was Greg Louganis.
Oh, okay.
And Seal owned him. So we showed, I don't know, we had an Irish setter, we had a standard Schnauzer, we had a Bichon. I'm just trying to think of all the dogs that we had at the same time that we were showing at the exact same time that she owned. I might be missing one at that time. But we just kept plugging along, and we had different Lakelands. Johnny, he won the Quaker Oats Award, or whatever it was called at the time. We had Lily, the Irish Terrier. She's the top winning Irish Terrier of all time. She won the Quaker Oats Award. We showed so many different dogs. I mean, we had a Pomeranian.
When did that Bichon arrive?
Which one?
The
JR?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good little story too. So we're at the Bichon.
Let's hear them all.
Well, we're at the Bichon National, and I want to say JR was maybe 7 months old, and Flavio was showing him, and he got, I think, first award of merit. And he was still a class dog, but he got first award of merit. So we go home from there, and Flavio was telling me that he was going to be going back to Brazil. And he said, I really want you to have this dog. And I said, well, I would love to. So I mentioned it to Seal. We had a dog of our own. He was okay. So after about 5 months of me calling Seal every day on the phone and saying to her, I don't care who shows that other dog, we're going to lose. I don't care who judges or what, we're going to lose. And she finally, these are her exact words. All right, I'll call her, because she didn't want to call the actual owner. So she finally makes the phone call, and Eleanor McDonald, who owned JR, gets on an airplane, flies from New York. We meet her at the airport in Houston. I drive her to the hotel. We drop her off. And as soon as she got out of the car, I was screaming. I was like so happy that I had this dog. So, I mean, he was just, and it was funny because we would go to, I'm not sure if it was his first dog show or his second weekend or what. But anyway, I show him to Carolyn Herbal, and going over him on the table, and she said, God, there's a dog that looks just like this on the East Coast. after she was done judging, I said, "This is the same dog." It was funny. I mean, he just had a way about him. I mean, but JR was one of a kind. I mean, show dog, over the top. And there were times, when you first start showing a dog, and I don't know how everybody does, but for me, when you first start showing a dog and you start winning and winning and winning, you get excited, you get the dog excited. Well, that caused me a little bit of a problem because my dog anticipated the win before he got the win. So he taught me a lot in that aspect, not to get your dog too excited. Because there were several times where he was not a little, he was completely out of control.
Yeah,
So
your excitement, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd rather have him like that than having to try to pick him up.
Oh, exactly. That's a hard job to bring them up when they don't want to be. So, tell me about the garden.
You mean winning at the garden?
Yeah, with him.
I don't know. That was, I was nervous, but not nervous because I think my gut feeling told me that I thought the Kerry Blue was going to win. So I think it sort of relaxed me a little bit.
That was
because I thought
Hotspur? Where was that?
Mick.
It was Mick, okay.
Mick. It was Dorothy McDonald. She had never judged JR ever. She had seen him at a lot of dog shows, but she never touched him ever. So I didn't really know what to expect. So I just kind of was more relaxed because, like I said, I thought the Kerry Blue was going to win. And it just worked out. I mean, we were walking in the ring and he was jumping and pulling and going crazy. And I remember, I can tell you my exact words and what I did. I actually had borrowed a choke chain from Mrs. Clark.
Okay.
Because it was some kind of a special chain that wouldn't break the hair off. And I used to show them with the chain, but I never had it where it was on the choke part. It was just like a loop. Mm-hmm. So I put it on the choke part before we walked in the ring because he was lunging like crazy. And I think I lifted him off the ground maybe by 1.5 feet. And I said, "Today is not the day, you son of a bitch." He walked in that ring and never missed a beat. I was always so afraid to correct him. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I should have done this months ago. So it worked. I mean, Gene Zaviris was standing right next to me as we were waiting to go into the ring. And he looked at me like, what the hell are you doing? And it worked.
He meant you. I guess he felt that you were serious at that point.
Yes.
That's a good story. So, over all these years, who were your mentors then, Scott?
Well, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I have to start with the Forsytes. Then you have to go to Mark and Bonnie, Ted Young, David Roberts.
Well, you're shortening the story. You got to give me more than that.
Well, there's just too many people. I mean,
what was it like working for Bob and Jane as a kid?
That was interesting.
Did you ever have to eat bologna spread?
Yep. that wasn't an option. That was an experience. I mean, there's nowhere that you could work where you would be dealing with 50 to 75 dogs. Nowhere.
That's crazy. I can't even think
just, the one good thing about working there was like when they had all their indoor shows, unlike today, they used to have the Foley boys, and they would unload your truck. So nobody ever had to unload anything. It's just that it took forever because you're taking 50 to 75 crates out of that bus. Oh, it's a funny story when I worked for them. Well, actually, two. We were in Philadelphia, so it was a bench show, and that was part of my job, was benching all the dogs. So there was never less than 10, 12 boxers, 8 Dobermans, 6 Labradors, whatever. So you'd load them up on the dolly, you take them all to their bench and do whatever. So Janie showed a min pin. His name was Bo. And I had put the last 4 boxers on the dolly. And I put the min pins crate on top of the boxers crates. So I go to the boxer aisle. I'm going to unload. Take the min pin, put them on the floor. Then I get the 4 boxers, put them on their bench, and I leave. Now it comes time for the toy group. Well, Mark goes to get the min pin for the toy group. And Mark comes back and says, someone stole the min pin. So, needless to say, little Bo spent his day in the boxer aisle with the people walking up and down. So that was a funny one. And then there was another one, back, I think Mark Shanoff was working for Forsyths that weekend. And this is back before, they used blow dryers and power blowers and all that kind of stuff. So there was an old English sheepdog, and he was either wet or something. So I think Mark put about 4 or 5 boxes of cornstarch in his legs. Well, the thing looked like plaster Paris. So never that dog didn't get shown that day either. But it was fun working for them. You learned a lot. Mark was always great. We go out to dinner and we were only allowed so much money to spend on dinner. But Mark would always kick in money so that we could all eat whatever we wanted. Interesting times.
Sure. Okay, so what about working for Teddy then? Or you work for David, but through Teddy, or David worked for Teddy and you worked for David, sort of?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That was fun. It was just doing something different, and it was mainly Cocker Spaniels. There were a couple of Poolies, a couple of Bichons. Before I even got involved with Bichon stuff. David was great to work for. He was very helpful and taught me a lot, and it's just different. Everybody can teach you something different. So, I really enjoyed working and helping all of those people
out. What about more? What about mentors outside of handlers?
Oh, Lord. Well, my mother, of course.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a hard one.
It could even be judges at this point. There was just someone that was influential in your growth,
Oh,
Scott Sommer.
definitely Forsyth, Mrs. Clark. I'm just Ken McDermott. Oh Lord, there's just too many. Just Bob and Polly Smith. Just any of them that give you any advice or teach you something about a breed that just because you're a dog handler and you show different breeds of dogs doesn't mean you know everything about every breed of dog you have.
Yeah.
I think if you get offered to show a dog that you're not really not even 50% sure how to trim it, and you go to certain people and you ask them because you trust what they're doing. I mean, like Marippy, I mean, fantastic. We're great friends today. She's taught me a ton. Like I was talking about that standard schnauzer that we had. I mean, who better to teach you about that than her?
For sure.
I mean, there's so many things. There's just too many people for me to name. I mean, it's all your friends. You know, uh, Greg Strong, Kelly Fitzgerald, Robin Novak. There's so many people that have taught me so many things. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Exactly. Well, let's start. Let's tell me about Stump then.
All right. Well,
We start off with this giggle first. It's like these stories are running through your head.
well, Stump was another story. So Doug Johnson wanted me to show one of his dogs. So he says, I have this Sussex Spaniel. And I said, a Sussex Spaniel? So anyway, he puts Stump on a plane and he sends him to Houston. And the first time I showed him was in Fort Worth, Texas. And he got beaten the breed. So I came home from that dog show and I called Doug and I said, well, if he's so great, how are we supposed to win if we can't win the breed? I said, the judge said he's the wrong color. So
What did Doug say?
he said, well, she's right. He's too dark because he's been inside. See, you have to put him outside and get the sun to lighten his color, because he was more liver colored than he was like a golden liver or whatever color it's supposed to be. So then we took him out of the ring for about six weeks. And then he went to his first dog show again after that. And he was
for 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, he was sunbathing. And he went best in show with Lisa Bettis showing, because I had won the non-sporting group. So Lisa Bettis showed him and he went best in show under Des Murphy. That was his first time. And from there, he kept doing great.
Yeah, because before Stump was like, I know when you said a Sussex Spaniel, like the best Sussex Spaniel in the world went fourth before Stump. It was like Stump sort of opened the door.
It was that was quite a ride, and it was fun. Stump was great. He was a great dog to live with. He was a lot of fun. And then when he got, I might be going ahead of myself. Do you want me to? Okay, if I speak about him going to the garden?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
All right, so my nephew had really taken a liking to the dog shows. So he wanted to show in juniors. Well, the only dog I actually owned at the time was Stump, because I owned him with Seal and Beth. So I let him show Stump in juniors. So we were at, I don't want to name the name of the dog show, but we were at a dog show, a big dog show. And we came home from that dog show and Stump got pretty sick. And he ended up living at A&M University for 19 days. So he pretty much had, I can't remember the exact name of what they called it, but pretty much every organ in his body was failed. They managed to get him through that. We would go there every day to see him. I actually had shaved his ears off because it was easier because his ears were huge. He got well, came home, lived on massive antibiotics for the rest of his life, pretty much. Grew all the hair back, and Mrs. Dowd, who was one of his owners with Seal, said, "Wouldn't it be nice to show Stump somewhere?" So we were like, "Oh well, you know, what do you where? You know, what are we going to do?" So we first thought was, "Oh, let's do the Sussex National." And then Doug said, "No, if you enter him at the Sussex National, you know, it's not a big entry. No one's going to show. You know, just I guess they're going to see his name in there. They're not going to. They're just going to do it." So then we said, "Okay, well, what about going to the Garden?" And you know, Beth Dowd was, you know, she loved the Garden and she loved all those big shows. And so we said, "Okay, we'll do that." So we enter him at the Garden, and Bolus was doing the breed. And I said, "Well, she's always liked him, so you know that'd be okay." I think the group judge maybe had given him a group or two. I can't really remember
Guess who
exactly.
the group judge was? Who was the group judge?
Bob Ennis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, Bob. Bob's a great guy.
So then, you know, as the day was going on, you know, all these different dogs that I thought would be like, you know, all the contenders kept losing the breed. I had no idea what was that we were going to win the group. I had no clue. Just winning the breed was, we were perfectly happy with just doing that.
Yeah.
Then he wins the group, and we're like, I mean, I was in shock. I mean, really and truly, I had no clue. And then Matthew Standor comes over to me. He says, "You're going to win this." So I was like, "No, there's no way." Oh, let me go back a little bit. Prior to going to the Garden, we were loading the dogs into the van to go to the airport. I think Stump went in and out of the van 4 times because I kept saying, "No, no, 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 no." I think it was Clayton Harris at the time. He says, "All right, make up your mind. Is he going or is he not going?" so we ended up, he went and wins the group, goes best in show. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I can say his name. So I think it was Peter said to me, "How the hell did you do that?" I said, "I entered my dog." I mean, that's God's honest truth. And that was it for Stump. I mean, that's how it happened.
That's a
And
great.
I remember there were people at the dog show. I didn't even know Stump was here. We didn't tell anybody. I mean, why would you tell anybody? Yeah. And big deal. Stump's at the dog show. So goes from there and goes best in show and kind of blew me away. That's for damn sure.
That was an exciting night. I was there.
Yep, I remember calling his vet because he was Stump was on heart pills because of all the problems he had. He took heart medicine, and I was like, "Well, you know, he normally takes it at this time and this time." I said, "Do I need to change anything around because he's going to be up at like midnight?" So I wasn't sure whether to give it to him at different times. I didn't even know if he was going to walk around the ring, fall over. I had no idea. So that was interesting. Trying to keep him awake through all of the stuff we had to do the next day.
Sure, yeah.
That wasn't easy either. And Dennis Brown had that job of lugging him around.
Wow.
Because we carried him most places.
I fell asleep that day too, doing those things. So after Stump, what went from there? How'd you do? What was next?
After Stump, there were other Bichons. There were, after Stump at the Garden, what was next? Well, there were so many other breeds. I had Griffons, Brussels Griffons, Lily the Irish Terrier, different Lakelands, uh, Gus, the Swiss Mountain Dog, that was a really fun thing to do too, with another breed that never really been recognized by much.
I know. I remember that young Alec painted a picture of him, and he showed me that picture.
Yes, Sue Copeland, I gave that to her. She has it at her house. Gus was a lot of fun. Owners were fantastic.
Was Gus your last dog? Was he that? Did you retire after
Yeah.
Gus?
Yes. Gus is, I think, going to be 11,
Wow.
and he's still going strong. And his owner still does all the same stuff she did with him when she was showing him. Goes swimming. She does everything with him. But he was really fun.
How old are you when you retired? How old were you?
Well, I'm 57 now, so 53.
And
Yep.
no judging in the future?
I really wanted to. And I still would like to do that. I think after weighing out the cost of what it would cost you to get a whole group and how many times you have to judge that group to recoup what you spent, sort of made me think it wasn't worth it. But I would love to judge, I always thought I would.
Exactly, yeah.
But I never thought it would, cost that much. And, I spoke to different people about it. I don't know, in today's world, maybe I think I'm glad I'm not judging. So I think I'm better off staying in my house.
I get that.
But no, supposed to judge the sweepstakes at the Bichon National. It's in May. I've judged a lot of like sweeps at specialties. And I liked it. There were certain breeds that I was like, wow, no wonder why these people can't win that. So there's, I don't know, I guess you take the good with the bad, but I don't know. I'm still sitting on the fence about the judging part, and
I think you should look into it. I know it's expensive, but it'd be a waste if you didn't do it. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. This is your show.
I think that they need to come up with maybe a little bit different plan for allowing people to judge. And I think that there's a difference between someone that shows 60, 70 different breeds and finishes thousands of dogs, opposed to someone that breeds a breed and finishes 5. So there should be some way of separating the two. You should have more. They should allow someone that has done that, finished all different breeds of dogs, bred dogs. There just should be a difference between the two. and they'll probably never change that.
It's the success level too. It's like in the real world, if you're this successful, you don't have to start at the bottom again. Like it's
Right.
it's hard to fathom sometimes. It really is. I understand that.
Well, when you go to 175, 180 dog shows a year, and you show 20 something dogs a day, 4 days a week, there's just a difference in your knowledge.
No question. It is,
And why you have to attend all those seminars on all those breeds that you did, that you may even know more about the breed than the people putting on the seminar. I don't think that just doesn't make sense to me.
I get that. Yep.
Like would you wanna be the person questioning Timmy Brazier, Bobby Peebles, Wendell Samet, any of those people? Would you want to question them about poodles?
No, not again. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's sort of how I feel about the whole situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought about the same myself, and you look at some of the people that aren't judging, and that's probably why they've decided not to do it, not to go that route. Let's go back to handlers. You had a lot of assistants over the years. What advice would you give someone that wanted to start out and to be a handler?
Find somebody that you respect what they do. More than likely, it's going to be somebody that's involved in a breed that you like. You make a commitment, and you just stick it out for the long haul and learn as much as you possibly can. I was very lucky with the people that work for me. All were very talented. Everybody was young. They all stayed here a long time. And they're all pretty much doing really well on their own. Started out.
Makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's, I think my track record with people that are handlers now are better than a lot. Let's see, started out, we had Adam Wilkerson. Then we had, Dennis Brown, Clayton Harris. Aaron Wilkerson was here, not as long as the others. Connery Cole was here with me. She was the last one here. But the four that are out there today showing dogs would be Clayton Harris, Dennis Brown, Aaron Wilkerson. Who am I missing? It's just them that are. Yeah, Dennis. Adam Pederson. I just went blank.
It happens.
So, between having Adam Pederson, Clayton Harris, Dennis Brown, and Aaron, they're all doing great. And funny thing that I always thought was funny is that, at the kennel that we're at now, there were 4 dogs that had been to that kennel that all went best in show at the garden. So you have Lacey, Stump, JR, and Uno.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Good record for that kennel.
Yeah.
Over all these years, you've seen all kinds of dogs. Don't mention any dogs that are being shown now, but what dogs have left an imprint on you that you hadn't shown yourself or been a part of? Like when you were a kid, you talked about the Kerry Blue that you saw Michael show.
Oh, yeah. That Road Runner, the Kerry Blue. That boxer that Janie showed, Sal Gray's Market Wise. There was a Cocker Spaniel that Teddy showed. I think her name was something Tekoa, Sagamore Tekoa, I think her name was. He showed another Cocker Spaniel, a party-colored one named Captain Cool.
Yeah, I remember that dog. Tacoa, was that a black bitch or was it an Ascot bitch? I can't remember now.
No, he was a red and white party color.
Tacoa bitch.
Tekoa was an Ascot,
Okay, that's what I thought.
like a buff color.
Yep.
And Captain Cool was a red and white one.
Red and white dog. Yeah, I remember that dog.
Yeah.
Stack, I
Um,
think was his name. Yeah.
yeah, there were lots. There I remember, I don't know how good some of these dogs were in real life, but when I was a kid, they were like heroes.
Yeah.
There was an Irish setter that George Alston showed named Marquis. That dog was pretty impressive to watch. And then, the other dog that he showed, Winslow, the foxhound.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was
That dog was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep, with half an ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dog was cool. And there were too many terriers to mention, but when I was still a kid, we go to like the Columbia Terrier Show, and I would help Peter Green out some. So, like, when you're 10 years old and someone like that says to you, "Can you hold this dog?" You feel like, wow, So I remember him asking me to hold Duke, his name is Sunnybrook Spot on. I was like, holy cow, this is like the real thing. So that was another one. Oh man, there's just too many dogs to think about.
And all of a sudden just pops you around, you'll see a breed and you'll think, oh, I remember that dog. I remember that the dog in that breed that bangs in my head. Like you talked about Marquis. Marquis was one of the first Irish setters that I totally fell in love with. So we all have those dogs.
Yeah, pretty magnificent. Oh, and then I think my first garden I ever went to was won by that short hair Columbia River.
Oh yeah.
Yep, that dog was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You asked me about people like mentors, Pat Trotter. I'm just starting to think of these people now. I can't just, the things that she's taught me about dogs, and she taught me a whole lot about elk hounds, because we showed some of those as well for seal. Certain things are just popping back into my head at the moment.
You can't call me back after this. So what's next then, Scott? Are you talking about maybe judging? What's next for Scott Sommer? Are you breeding anything? What are you doing?
Not really. I co-own some Bichons, so we're still involved in those. Have one that we are involved with that when we actually get to see him, because he's in another country, if he looks as good as he looked in the videos and in the photos, might be enough to get me back to a dog show. Because he looks pretty sharp. I have 2 Dobermans as my house pets. They're both champions. And we've had 2 litters of those. Other than that, I just run my kennel, and that's about it.
Enough, I'm sure. Okay, one last question then I'll let you go. You could talk to the 20-year-old Scott and give him advice. What advice what would you give Scott now? As a 20-year-old.
Wanting to be a dog handler?
Well, it's whatever, any kind of advice. What kind of advice would you, knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 20-year-old Scott Sommer, what would you tell him?
Oh, what would I tell him? Probably, if I was being perfectly honest, I would say I wish I was in my brother's footsteps instead of mine. No. Um, Let me see. I would say that if you, regardless of what you choose to do in life, just do it 110% and give it the best you can, and that's really all you can do. And as long as you try hard, things will work out.
Well, we would hope so, right? You work your best, and those things tend to go your way if you do all the right things, right?
Yep, definitely.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you're
All right.
busy right now because you're in the middle of a move, even though you dressed up the background for me, but I know you're in the middle of a move.
Well, it's not really dressed up.
No.
It's better than looking at a bare wall. So, no, other than that, I mean, everything here is good. And, I don't know. They'll see me at a dog show, maybe once things calm down a little bit. And
Sure. When's the big move?
probably within the next 3 weeks. Just when you live in a house for 25 years, you collect a lot of stuff. And my house is pretty big because, I used to have all those people working for me live here. So it's just big.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff to move.
So we've been packing for weeks. So donating a lot of stuff and packing.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with the move, man. I'm sure it'll be great, and I hope to see you at a show somewhere at some time. It's been a long time. Appreciate.
When's your next show?
Oh God, I don't know. Nothing's up here. There was talk maybe April they'd get a show started up here. I don't know. We're in a complete lockdown right now, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same in London.
Yeah, exactly.
My brother lives there, and he said they're complete lockdown.
Yeah, I was talking to Gavin Robertson last week, and they haven't had a show for a year, so.
I think it'll definitely be fall before.
Once the vaccine gets out and about, people start feeling more comfortable with it all, and the outdoor shows up here. We'll like April's pushing it. It's still chilly up here, but we can do it. We'll do it. We did October, so we can do it. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't think it's going to get too good here anytime soon, especially with all the indoor, everything here. Once it gets hot, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So after pretty much after the month of March, you're kind of screwed because it just gets too hot.
Yeah, I've never shown in Texas, but I understand that. So.
Yeah.
Oh well, let's hope our world rightens itself pretty soon, Scott. So.
All right. Sounds good.
Good to see you.
Yep. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
We'll talk soon, and best of luck with everything.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, thanks, Scott. There were some stories I'd never heard before. That was very interesting. Good to catch up. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. You want to get a hold of me, go to dogshowtips@gmail.com. Or if you just want to find out what's happening in my world, go to willalexander.net. Until next week, stay safe out there, guys.